How social media affects your teen's mental health, a parent's guide. Mental health issues among teens have been rising for more than a decade, and some experts wonder how much social media use is to blame. If you're a parent questioning if and how you should monitor the way your teenagers use social media, you're not alone. And this also goes to if you're a teen. This is good for you to know. In the spring of 2023, United States Surgeon General Vivek Murthy, MD, MBA, released an advisory called Social Media and Youth Mental Health, in which he says there is a growing evidence that social media is causing harm to young people's mental health. Soon after, the American Psychological Association, the APA, issued its own health advisory. A year later, in June 2024, not too long ago, Dr. Murthy called for a Surgeon General's warning label on social media platforms, which would require an act of Congress to implement. Wow. Surgeon General's warning, like a pack of cigarettes. Teenagers are at risk for a lot of these addictions because they lack a prefrontal cortex. It's not fully developed. It doesn't even develop until around age 25. So that's what controls impulses. So that's why teenagers are rebellious. That's why they do wild things. It's because they don't have the actual physical, biological capacity to do that. I mean, some may have one that's more, developed than others. Alhamdulillah for Islam, we have the parents that can impose those impulse controls, still allow the child to try to discover themselves, try to make sense of the world, but they have guardrails. And so we do the best we can. But here, we're seeing, especially after the incident 4 years ago, or what everybody went through, that really has more people on social media. When you're just sitting at home, have nothing to do. Everybody went on social media. So the issue is complicated, however. While there are indicators that it can have a profound risk of harms to teens, more on that below, social media use aimed at making healthy connections with others may actually be beneficial to some people. Dr. Murthy's report indicates that more research is needed to fully understand the impact of social media. For parents, this means there are no easy answers. That's basically, when they say no easy answers, that just means they're trying to sugarcoat it. No one really needs social media. Yeah, there's some benefit, but how many people actually use it for benefit? Most people don't. I have a Facebook account. I have relatives that I haven't seen most of my life on there. Once in a while, I pop in to see if anybody is, has something to say or if we're doing a conversation, but that's it. No scrolling. Just go to the messages or whatever. But yourself. They're probably going to talk about the scrolling because that's the worst part of social media. We'll talk about that. The issues we face now with social media are similar to those we faced when television came out, says Linda Mays, MD, chair of the Yale Child Study Center, YCSC. She explains that as with TV watching, there are pros and cons to social media for young people. So how do we help parents filter out the parts that may be detrimental? Social media is nothing like television. I think I probably watch more television than anybody watching this right now. And it had no impact on my social life other than the time that I was away from my friends when I was watching it. But I didn't sit and watch TV for like 10 hours a day. I watched a movie, maybe a couple of movies a day or something like that. But social media is way different than watching TV. Let's see, below Dr. Mays and YCSC's Yan Ponson, MD, as child psychiatrist, offer advice for parents trying to help their teenagers use social media in a positive way. Because, they want you on social media, but they want to use that in moderation, quote, that doesn't work. And so, and it depends on the individual. If a child has trauma, has a, stressful home, fighting and bullying and all kinds of things going on in the house is crazy, they're going to escape through video games, social media, and a lot of, especially non-Muslims, they're going to go to drugs or they're just going to leave the house. They're going to just always be out and about, probably doing things that aren't positive. But first, some background. Social media use in teens, background, benefits, and harms. As parents, you might ask yourself, what specifically about social media use can have a negative impact on my teen? Okay, let's see what they say. Dr. Murthy's advisory was based on what is described as substantial review of available evidence. It raises a variety of concerns, including the amount of time adolescents spend on platforms, the type of content they consume or are exposed to, and the degree to which their online interactions disrupt activities essential for life, such as sleep and exercise. It points out that social media can also affect young users in different ways, depending on their strengths and vulnerabilities as individuals, as well as their cultural, historical, and social economic backgrounds. So yeah, it disrupts activities essential for health. If you're on there for hours and hours and hours a day, then yeah, you're missing life, not just activities. You're missing out on life. You're not going for walks. You're not really engaging in person with people. You're not, talking to your relatives. But again, it says here, it definitely depends on their strengths and vulnerabilities, because maybe you don't have a family you can talk to. Maybe they're also scrolling. Maybe they're not home. Maybe they're too busy. Maybe they're hands-off parents that aren't actively raising you. They're just kind of making sure you don't die or hurt yourself. That's pretty much the extent of it. Maybe, they're home, but they're not psychologically, emotionally present, which is actually worse than not being home, by the way. Maybe we'll talk about that sometime. The report stresses that the brain is going through a highly sensitive period between the ages of 10 and 19, when identities and feelings and self-worth are forming. Frequent social media use. Yeah, see, this is the self-worth are forming. This is just part of a person trying to find their place in the world. That's what we do as humans from the day we're born. We try to make sense of the world. We try to find our place in the world. And so by scrolling, this isn't the world. This is like an alternate reality. A lot of things are exaggerated. We see things that we normally wouldn't see in real life. 95% of the things we see on the internet, we probably would never see in our lifetime. And so we're seeing things that we naturally wouldn't see, things that Allah normally would hide, a lot of death, a lot of, haram websites, all these types of things we normally wouldn't see in life, we're scrolling and seeing. And the scrolling part is what we'll get to. That's the key harm of social media. So what are the potential benefits of social media use by teens? Some teenagers experience a benefit when they use social media to foster positive connections with others who share common interests or identities, if they're seeking a connection with others who are, say, members of a particular racial identity. That's interesting. Creating a space for self-expression. Relationships formed in communities like these can create opportunities for positive interaction with more diverse peer groups than are available to them offline, according to Dr. Murthy's report. So that's something positive. You can meet people from other parts of the world, other cultures that you normally wouldn't. That's a good thing. The advisory points to 2020 survey of American teenagers and their parents by the Pew Research Center, which showed that the majority of respondents felt that social media helps teenagers feel more accepted, 58%, like they have people who can support them through tough times, 67%, that they have a place to show their creative side, 71%, and that they are more connected to what's going on with their friends' lives, 80%. You don't really need to be in your friends' lives like that. In fact, spending too much time with friends, you start to get on each other's nerves. Sometimes, what is it? The heart absence makes the heart grow stronger, something like that. You need your friends in doses, just like anything else. And so, yeah. So posting to let your friends know how you've been spending your time can be a positive or healthy way to connect and hear about each other's day, says Dr. Ponson. It's no different than 30 years ago when adolescents would be on the phone for 3 hours connecting with their friends. Only now you're online with your friends saying, meet you after school, or did you hear about this? Yeah, being on the phone and checking, nowhere near similar. When you're on your phone, you're not dialing other numbers. You're not, also talking to the news. You're not also talking to, a 1-900 number. You're not talking to, you're just talking to your friend on the phone. So it's not you're just in one context. When you're online, you're not just posting to your friends. You're also scrolling, you're going to this website, this app, that app. You're constantly context switching, and that's part of the addiction. That's the crux of the big problem. So here, they're just talking about the content in terms of how they're similar, but this is not related to why it's harmful. Okay, so now they're talking about that. What are the potential harms of social media use by teens? Over the last decade, increasing evidence has identified the potential negative impact of social media on adolescents. According to a research study of American teens aged 12 to 15, those who use social media over 3 hours each day face twice the risk of having negative mental health outcomes, including depression and anxiety symptoms. Okay, let's see if they talk about why. The advisory states that other studies point to a higher relative concern of harm in adolescent girls and those already experiencing poor mental health, as well as for particular health outcomes such as cyberbullying, related depression, body image and disordered eating body image and disordered eating behaviors, and poor sleep quality linked to social media use. So yeah, teen girls have more issues with social media. They're more, about how they look. In fact, I read somewhere in a study that women judge and check each other out more than men check out the women. So women are constantly looking at each other, judging each other. And so not all women, obviously, but that's the beauty of Islam, in that, you dress modestly, you cover up. You don't have to worry about those things. You only uncover maybe for your close friends or family in private. And so yeah, girls tend to have and girls, want to fit in more. They're more social. They're more socially active in terms of having friends, trying to seek out, connections with people. So what's more, the social media algorithm they're built to promote whatever you seem interested in, says Dr. Mays. If a teen searches for any kind of mental health condition, such as depression or suicide, it's going to feed them information about those things. So soon, they may begin to think that everyone around them is depressed or thinking about suicide, which is not necessarily good for mental health. This is social proof. There have been many studies that show when a suicide was majorly or, mass exposed or whatever in the news and covered, suicides would go way up. And so this weird phenomenon where if something is popularized, there's like a way higher chance. If something's popularized or shown in the news, there's a very high chance that someone else will do it. And it's not even just a coincidence of, someone so-and-so committed suicide and a whole bunch of other people started committing suicide. They would actually be of the same economic status, maybe in the same area. And so people who were always kind of on the edge, teetering of suicide, just by getting the social proof of seeing someone commit suicide, they then went through with it. And the same goes with car accidents. If car accidents are highly publicized, car accidents go up. And so this is actually the danger of making headlines and big news about school shootings. When you do that, you're greatly increasing the odds of another one happening. And so, yeah, social proof is very powerful, whether it's negative or positive. When does the kind of content teens see become an issue? Teens can easily access extreme, inappropriate, or harmful content. In certain cases, deaths have been linked to suicide and self-harm related content, such as cutting, partial asphyxiation, and risk-taking challenges on social media platforms, according to Dr. Murphy's report. Studies also found that discussing or showing this content can normalize these behaviors. That's another aspect of social media, not social media. That's the other aspect of social proof. The more we see people doing things, the more we think it's normal. And the more, even if you're someone who's not even considering cutting themselves, you could see that. And then because you see it so many times online, and because these algorithms are showing you more content that should, of what you're looking at, it says, oh, you seem to like this content. So it shows you more. The more you see it, the more you see it, the more it becomes normal. And then it's much easier for you to try it or do it. And if you have any trauma, it's going to actually relieve pain. As weird as that sounds, we'll talk about that in another video. But yeah, social proof is a big deal. This is one of the big issues of social media, along with the scrolling. It's the normalizing of a lot of things that you normally would never see or do in your lifetime without the internet. Eating disorders are yet another concern. A review of 50 studies across 17 countries between 2016 and 2021, published in PLOS, Global Public Health, suggests that relentless online exposure to largely unattainable physical ideals may trigger a distorted sense of self and eating disorders. This is considered to be a particular problem among girls. So again, girls at a higher risk of these type of, body dysphoria, health, how they look. And, you see people online and they all put on their best face. Everyone, dresses up before they get in front of the camera. It's a persona. It's not really who they are. But to the viewer, you think, oh, wow, this person looks so perfect. This person has everything. You don't know that person rented these certain things, like rappers back in the day for the videos. Everyone used to, rent the jewelry, rent the cars, rent everything, rent the house. Didn't really make much money, but to the people watching the video, they thought, wow, this dude has it all, In addition, people who target adolescents, for instance, adults seeking to exploit teens or financially extort them through the threat or actual distribution of intimate images may use social media platforms to these types of predatory behaviors, according to Surgeon General's advisory. So, yeah, you have predators, you have people online posing as someone else, the catfish thing. And so it's very dangerous because, teens trying to fit in. You have an adult, a predator who's very slick with his words or her words, and it's very dangerous. They could have think they have this long lost friend or this, pen pal, and it's some dude or some weirdo trying to lure them and do them harm. And then here it even says blackmail them. So why is excessive use of social media a problem? Okay, here we go. We talked about all the negative outcomes, but why is this a problem? The excessive use of social media can harm teens by disrupting important healthy behaviors. Some researchers think that exposure to social media can overstimulate the brain's reward center, and when the stimulation becomes excessive, can trigger pathways comparable to addiction. Yes, let's take a look at that. Let's go to our handy dandy iPad. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening. So, and normally in life, you have this balance of pleasure, sorry about my handwriting, and pain. So your brain's constantly trying to keep this homeostasis of pleasure and pain. So you go, you look at a sunset, you spend time with family, it goes down, dopamine starts to release and weighs down on the side of pleasure. We enjoy it, time with family, going for walks, watching the sunset. We'll use those examples. And so then pain is light over here. Now, when that thing that we're doing is over, or even while we're doing it, maybe the pleasure dissipates a bit. It's like, oh, okay, I'm ready to go home. Okay, that's your brain trying to regain homeostasis, try to get this balance back. Now, when we're online and we're scrolling, which is simulating or mimicking gambling, if you recall, if you've ever seen a slot machine or anything in a casino, there's always this pause before seeing whether you won or lose. So when you pull the handle on the slot machine, the tumbler's going, and you're anticipating it landing on either winning or losing. Doesn't matter. In fact, they found that a lot of people got more pleasure out of losing than winning because of the potential of you're just going to keep on going. And so it's this anticipation, this moment, that's when dopamine's released. And so, you pull the lever on the slot machine and you're waiting, you're anticipating, your brain is being flooded with dopamine, which is actually, they found, is more powerful than the actual reward itself. And so when we're scrolling, we're mimicking this anticipation. You're constantly context switching, constantly landing on some novel, new information or new sensory input. And so even with rolling dice, playing craps, they never have you just roll the dice right there in front of you. You don't just go boom and you see what you got. No, you have to roll it down this long table. And so that long table is to create that gap, that time for you to anticipate what the outcome of those dice are going to be. And so any type of thing like that. So when we're scrolling, instead of having just a normal little tilt to the side of pleasure, like going for a walk, it goes heavily down to the side of pleasure. And the problem with this, and especially while, it mentioned doing this for several hours a day, the problem with that is the more you do this, the harder you fall when your brain's trying to get you back to a balance. But it doesn't go back to a balance. It doesn't go here. It falls well below baseline to the side of pain. And so this is why, I don't even know what that is. And again, this is why we feel so terrible, what they call doom scrolling. It's when you're just mindlessly scrolling. You're not even enjoying it. You're just going through the motions. And so we'll see what this talks about in terms of getting through this, things to help improve, weaning yourself down from social media. But yeah, these walks and, viewing the sunset and time with family just pales in comparison to the synthetic release of these high levels of dopamine. And so, stimulating the brain reward system, normal life just doesn't compare. And so people just end up on social media, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And then, this is one of the negative outcomes. So Excessive use has also been linked to sleep problems, attention problems, and feeling of exclusion in adolescence. And sleep is essential for the healthy development of teens, according to Dr. Murthy's advisory. Yeah, sure. So, yeah, it's an extremely important time of our lives is when we're teens. Our brains are still developing, our bodies are still developing, hormones are all over the place, and filling that gap or that process with social media and these addictive qualities of social media, it just really interferes and actually incorporates itself into the formation of the brain because the brain is malleable. It shapeshifts our entire lives. And so this is, one of the big bad outcomes of social media. Social media use in teens, a guide for parents. After reading the background as a parent, you might ask yourself, sure, but do kids really use social media that much? Yeah, they do. Social media use among young people is nearly universal now, based on surveys from Pew Research Center. In 2022, up to 95% of teenagers surveyed at ages 13 to 17 reported using social media, and more than a third of them use it almost constantly. Yeah, and a lot of us don't even realize it's happening because so many of us as parents are having the same exact problem. And, TV, we used to sit our kids in front of the TV as a way of, distracting them to just have them busy. Now the TV's in their pocket and they're scrolling multiple channels, and you have the commercials and now interacting with them and conversating with them. It's just totally bonkers. Pew has also tracked which social media platforms or apps teenagers are using. In 2023, it found the majority of teens, 9 out of 10, for those ages 13 to 17, use YouTube, followed by TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. Their use of Facebook dropped dramatically. There was also a decrease in use of Twitter, now called X, although that was not as steep. So yeah, YouTube has a very good design, the way it keeps giving you novel recommendations. Every time you hit your home button, it refreshes. Things are constantly changing, context switching. Again, just think of the slot machine, followed by TikTok, Snapchat, and Instagram. These three, people have seen through research over time that the content that we're being exposed to, whether on TV, commercials, whatever, is getting shorter and shorter and shorter, creating a shorter and shorter attention span. And so it's interesting to see. So I was looking at some research, and it showed that TikTok is number one, Snapchat, and then Instagram. Interestingly enough, based on that, the attention span that I just mentioned, TikTok has the shortest, followed by Snapchat, and then Instagram. So the shorter the clips and the faster we're context switching, the more addictive potential. With that in mind, YCSC experts provide a guide for parents concerned about their teen social media use. So let's see what they got to go. So let's see what they have to say. Number one, determine the age your child will have access to social media. Experts are still exploring whether there is a right age for a child to access social media. The APA explains that adolescents mature at different rates, which makes establishing a universal age recommendation difficult. Yeah, this is true. This is subjective. A lot of people mature at different ages, physically. A lot of people go through puberty much faster. Oh, which reminds me that for over the past 30 years, children, primarily girls, are reaching puberty a week and a half early every day for the last 30 years or something like that, or every month. So it's kind of wild, and they're attributing it to certain food additives and things like that. But that's another subject. But yeah, everyone matures differently. The brain, even for the most part, though, doesn't fully mature until age 25. So we don't want to conflate physical, bodily maturity to mental. Although the minimum age most commonly required by social media platforms in the U.S. is 13, nearly 14% of children ages 8 to 12 use social media, according to Dr. Murthy's report. That signals how difficult it can be to enforce these rules without parental supervision. So yeah, kids are getting younger and younger. I remember a report saying the average age of seeing her on websites was 12. I think now it's 8. So yeah, we do not give your kids a cell phone or a tablet. Have them watch YouTube on the television in the living room where you can see what they're watching. Have them use your account. Don't let them just, have a phone in their pocket everywhere they go. I'm learning that myself as a parent. One strategy is to make social media plan for your family long before the teenage years, Dr. Ponson says. In my opinion, elementary school age children should not have full-on internet access using a device with all the social media apps. Well, we can kiss this goodbye in 2020 when they forced everyone to be on the internet. So 2020 was a big push to have everyone on social media. Everyone was locked in their house and forced to use social media, children included. Their school went online, so now they have this computer in front of them that they have to use, and those computers have apps, and parents rewarding them with phone usage and using screen time. So we want to reward our children with hugs and kisses, not with materialism, not with toys, not with candy and sugar, not with social media. In terms of phones, they can start with a dumb phone, a cell phone that doesn't have an email, an internet browser, and other features found on smartphones. Yeah, you can still get flip phones till this day, or they still have phones. I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically a smartphone that allows the parent to have complete control and see where they're going, locks down apps, etc. For middle schoolers who show maturity and responsibility, who can get themselves to sleep and do their homework, for example, additional access may be fine, notes Dr. Ponson, but he suggests delaying full access to smartphones for as long as possible, opting for a device, allowing you to add more apps as your child matures. Yeah, even if they did a survey of teens, and even they themselves said that kids probably shouldn't have a cell phone until at least 16, just based on their experience. Establishing a family social media plan might also be useful. The American Academy of Pediatrics offers tools that can help. In addition to setting the age at which you plan to start giving your kids phones on internet access, this plan can be used to establish rules and educate children and teens about being careful about privacy settings, avoiding strangers online, not giving out personal information, and knowing how to report cyberbullying, Dr. Mays says. Yeah, this goes for all aspects of life. We want to educate our kids. We don't want to just say, can't do that, don't do that, hands off. We want to be explaining things to our kids. We want to educate them. We want to tell them why we don't do these things, even though they may not really take it in because they're teenagers. Like I said, they lack impulse control. They lack the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part of the brain. Our brains work from the bottom up. From the bottom, it's all purely physical reaction. Then it hits the emotional brain. And then from there, it reaches the logical brain or the thinking brain. And so that thinking brain is not fully formed, like I mentioned, until age 25. We have to educate. We still have to put our work in. We still have to tie our camel. Still, explain to them, give them, like it says here, once they start getting older, they're going to eventually have a phone. You don't want them just to open the floodgates and, take in the internet like a fire hose. You want to be able to slowly get them on there while educating them on the things to look out for. To keep devices, number 2, keep devices out of the bedroom. Research shows the relationship between social media use and poor sleep quality reduce sleep duration and sleep difficulties in young people, according to Dr. Murthy's advisory. For teens, poor sleep is linked to emotional health issues and a higher risk for suicide. Yeah, so one of the reasons why this is bad, and it was also even bad back in the day, one of the negative things that this has in common with phones, phone use back in the day, we used to have this long cord that would go all the way from the kitchen to the bedroom, or from, no one really, not too many people had their own phone in their room, but it had this really long cord. This was before cordless phones. But the act of just talking on the phone while laying in bed is very similar. When you're scrolling on your phone, this goes for adults too. Don't scroll in bed, because our brains are very habitual and very adaptive. And so if you sit on your bed and watch TV or scroll on your phone and you sleep there, obviously, your brain's not going to really know what the purpose of the bed is. So it's very hard for your brain to context switch. Like I mentioned before, there's still always a residual effect or some residue from what you were doing previously. So if you're scrolling and then think you're just going to lay down and go to bed, it may not work out that way, because your brain is thinking, hey, what are we doing? We're supposed to be scrolling. Sleep usually gets a higher precedence because this is when the body is in the rest and repair stage. This is when, the brain is developing. All kinds of things are going on during sleep. So if you're not getting enough sleep, this has a big effect on us mentally and physically. Start getting sick more, things like that. According to Dr. Murthy's report, on a typical weekday, nearly 1/3 of adolescents report using screen media until midnight or later. While screen media use includes various digital activities, social media apps are the most commonly used applications by teens. For me personally, I put time blocks on the Wi-Fi here at home, and I turn off the cellular. So, for my older kids, they have a cell phone, but what I do when they're home is I turn off the cellular service through AT&T, and then it's dependent on the Wi-Fi, and then I put time blocks that force them to take breaks. And I always know when they're on a break because they come out of their room. So I need to probably do this here where it says don't let them have it in their room. Knowing that, try to create a culture at home where all phones are turned off by a certain time, and make sure it's at least 1 hour before going to bed. Yeah, one good strategy is to have all the phones and everything like on the kitchen counter or some central area in the house. Don't make it so accessible. The supply creates the demand. If the phone's on your person, if it's in your pocket, if it's in your pocket, every time you get bored or there's a lull in your day or something's going on, you're going to just pull it out. It becomes like automatic, and especially for teens. And as this automatic response happens while their brain's developing, it becomes a part of them. So yeah, something to really keep in mind. Try to put it somewhere where you can't just grab it. However, you may find that bedtime rules don't work as well as your kids get older. It may be necessary to ask your teen to put their phones outside the bedroom before going to bed. But if the response is, I do my homework late and have group chat about math, so I'm going to need the phone to group chat, and you suspect your teen isn't being honest, that will be a different conversation, Dr. Bronson says. But having these open conversations is critical. Yeah, and this part here, doing my homework late, a lot of this push was after 2020 when kids were actually had to do their work online and remote. So it kind of throws off our judgment. Even me growing up in the 80s, I know every trick in the book, but now, you want to trust your kid unless you catch them lying, but you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. We don't want to always suspect they're up to no good, because then they'll feel like, well, I'm not up to no good, but if you're going to keep treating me like I am, I might as well. Right. So we just kind of have to play it by ear and just go with the flow and, just keep our eyes open. Number 3, keep the lines of communication open and let your teen make mistakes. It'll be easier to talk to your teens about social media if you have comfortable conversations with them about other issues, the doctors say. I don't believe you should monitor the content of your teen's phone because a teenager should have privacy, Dr. Bronson says. An important part of the teenage years is figuring out who you are in the world. That's what we talked about earlier. So it's important for them to explore and even make mistakes without you hovering around them. The goal is to keep lines of communication open and establish some trust with your child so they'll come to you if there are issues, he adds. Yeah, a lot of this can be controlled by not letting your kids have screen time before the age of 13, at least 13 or 12. I noticed a big difference between my older kids and my younger kids. My older kids grew up with no internet until they were in their teens. And then my younger ones, of course, born into the internet world. But if you control it before then and you're with them all the time and there's Islam in the house or in the home, in the life, you build that really solid foundation. So even if they do, trip up or, do things, stumble, upon things on the internet or whatever, they'll bounce back. And so we just have to be there and not chastise them and give them a hard time anytime we catch them with something, because, they may not come to you after that. They may try to hide everything at that point. And if you're not giving them a lot of attention, if you're mostly giving them negative attention, they'll just keep doing it because negative attention is better than no attention. This too is similar to the advice given when parents were concerned about the impact of television on children. As Dr. May's research showed that watching TV in and of itself wasn't bad, but again began to have potentially negative effects on kids' behavior when it was used as a babysitter. The message to parents was to sit beside their kids and watch TV with them and then talk about what they're watching. Yeah, that's something to do. Like I mentioned before, we used to use the TV. Parents would use the TV as like they're saying here, as a babysitter. Parent had something to do, they put them in front of the TV. Well, now the parent's watching their own TV in their hand, walking around. So, at the very least, we can watch it with them. And so I do that with my daughters. We watch stuff together. Neither you nor your teen will be happy if you sit beside them and scroll down your social media feeds together, but you can take the time to ask how social media is working for them, Dr. May suggests. So you're not saying, oh no, you're on social media. Rather, you're normalizing it and making it clear that you're willing to talk about what they're experiencing or learning. This sets it up for them to talk to you, and if they run into a problem, instead of going to their peers or looking for solutions online. So yeah, you kind of just want to be involved in your kid's life. You want to be a hands-on parent. Number 4, be mindful of your approach when talking to your teen. Although keeping the line of communication open matters, how you have those conversations is equally important. If you're concerned about your teen's social media use and feel the need to intervene, you might say something like, it seems like you're on the phone so much that I don't see you just doing homework like you used to do. So I'm just worried how healthy this is for you in terms of getting your stuff done. What do you think about that? Yeah, so this is a good approach. Like I said, talking to your kid. Don't just be an authoritarian, stop this, taking the phone, go to your room. These type of things aren't preparing the child for how to self-regulate later. A lot of kids who are just scolded all the time and abused, not getting much positive reinforcement, you're conditioning them to need society to do that for you once they are older and out the house, aka police and the legal system. So you have to teach them to self-regulate, saying, you know what, that's not good. Here's why. What do you think how you think you can do it different next time? Like working with them. You'll be seen as an advisor. You'll be seen as somebody like an advisor to them who will come to you for help. They won't be afraid to come to you. You might even need to be more assertive, for instance, saying, I've noticed that you're on your phone until 1. When I go to the bathroom, your light is on and you're on the phone. That's not healthy. So can we come up with a plan that you're most comfortable with? So yeah, again, just talking to your kid, working through it together. It's all about the approach. It's not even a lot of times what you're saying, it's how you say it. So that just takes some wisdom. Number 5, follow the rules yourself. This is the last one. This is lead by example. It's so important. As parents, you're on the role model. So let's see what it says. As a parent, you are a role model, and that means following all the same rules you're setting for your children. If you ask your teenager to limit their screen time, you should do so as well, says Dr. Mays, noting that it's not uncommon to see parents looking at their phones when they're out with their kids. Yeah, I've had to do this. This is one of the reasons I've greatly cut back in social media, is because I'm trying to encourage my own kids, my younger ones, not to be on social media or just the internet in general. And so it's very important that I lead by example. There was this commercial back in the day where it was like a public service announcement or something, where a parent walked in on his kid, and his kid was in there like smoking weed, doing drugs. And he says, "What are you doing? Where did you learn to do that?" And the kid turns to him with a tear in his eye. "I learned it from you. Okay?" And so this is the same type of deal. If you go in and you're like, "What are you doing on your phone at 1 a.m.? What are you doing?" It's like, "I learned that from you." So if you want your kids to not do something, you yourself don't do it. And so it's very important, because then they resent you. They say, well, you keep getting on me about getting off the internet, but you're on it all the time too. So you might have a hard time resisting your social media feeds, texts, and emails. Sometimes it helps to admit to your teenager that you find it difficult to put down your devices too. I wouldn't stress on that too much. I know it's good to kind of identify with your kid and kind of show them that you're human too. But, this is kind of like in IT, you don't want a senior telling, as a senior, you don't want to tell a new hire or somebody who's an entry level or a junior. You don't want to, say, "Yeah, I find this really hard too. I find that really difficult too." You kind of want to limit that, because, they're coming to you as someone to learn from and to learn how to improve themselves. But if you make it look like you're in the same boat with them, they're going to be like, "Well, what am I coming to you for?" So, you can put this in a way that, shows that you identify with them and you understand, but you don't want to kind of, you know what I mean? You don't want to make them feel like you're in the same boat. This global issue where parents want their kids to do things differently and better than they do, Dr. Ponson says. So once again, having an honest conversation is important. Note, cyberbullying and online abuse or exploitation can be reported to the school or the police, or on a website such as Take It Down and Cyber Tip Line, according to Surgeon General report. So, yeah, kids on phones, good ways to wean off is to allow yourself to be bored. This is probably one of the most effective ways to wean off of social media. Don't keep the phone on yourself anytime we're at a stoplight, in the bathroom, in a line, any type of lull in the day. Don't reach for your phone. Or if you feel like you are, just, be mindful and stop yourself. This will help you to have ideas and be productive and enjoy life. It's very important to make that effort to wean down until, maybe an hour a day total. Every now and then, like I said, check in and see what maybe someone says. But do not scroll. This is, like I said, this is modeled after gambling. I believe they knew what they were doing, and they all seem to do it. They all have to scroll. Even video games now have incorporated actual gambling algorithms. So, these platforms get paid for you looking at them. So these are the ones that are addictive. So you really got to keep that in mind. And may Allah make it easy. And if you found this beneficial, be sure to share, subscribe, and all the things. Share with your friends and family, inshallah. And until next time, may Allah reward you for being curious, and keep tying your camel. Assalamu alaikum.